What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel and to my Team of the Week prediction series, being easily the most popular series here on the channel. Now today, and as always, I will be covering my set of predictions for which cards to expect in this squad, depending on how well they've played in real life and for their team, and depending on how their team's playing in the league, and how it all comes together. And now, whilst I know these Team of the Week cards aren't exactly great or even usable at this stage in the game, I'd still like to carry on the series as I have done all year, and carry on this tradition, if you will, and to carry on into next FIFA. And so just before we get on with the video, do feel free to show your support to the channel, as it's much appreciated, by subscribing if you haven't already, especially if you're interested in this sort of content, FIFA related that is. And drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it by the end, and make sure to keep showing your support, that is, as we roll on into the upcoming season for football and into FIFA 21. With all that being said, we'll get on with the actual players in mind. So first up, and as always, I have opted for the 5 benched players, settling for these lot as you can see on screen. Yol of Eibar as their number 1, Morrison of Cardiff, Zimral of Brescia, Rossi of LAFC for his second in form of the year, and yet another Uruguayan beside him in Stuani. These cards especially are far from groundbreaking, but as we look to close off the 2019-2020 footballing season, teams around the world are fighting for their position in the league, be it for third place, first, second, just a top 4 finish in general. Maybe it's to get out of relegation zone, which is always the battle, of course, for maybe weaker sides or teams that have kind of underperformed in the leagues, as well as getting into the playoffs or maybe European spots in the table, that is. Each squad looks desperate to give it their all in this last stretch, hence some strong performances from different teams over the last few weeks. Anyways, Yol, as you can see on screen, was key in a 3-1 win for his Spanish side for their second consecutive win, in before what was a pretty gruesome defeat of 4-1 to Villarreal in the most recent game, likely combating the chances of him actually getting a feature in the squad. But I did see how well he played. He was quite a highly spoken of player following his performances, but of course losing 4-0 is never great, and it kind of shoots down any positivity he had beforehand. And I'll just cover another for this slide, as I don't want to go into too much detail about these players, considering that they're not even that important when it comes to actually using these cards in the game. So I'll just give a bit of context for Rossi, as probably the only usable player in this little screen here, who himself has a team of season, so he's kind of irrelevant himself anyways. But we'll cover him as him in the MLS, that is, where he most recently boasted a 4-goal performance, thrashing LA Galaxy in aid for a 6-2 win. Now, I don't know too much about this LA derby, but I do know, as with every derby, it can get quite heated. Obviously there's no fans, so it's more the players and their pride, and a 6-2 win for one of the sides, that's kind of rough on the other side, and I hope LA Galaxy can probably bounce back from this coming next season. Anyways, we'll move away and on to the starting 11. Firstly, with the goalkeeper spot, as always, I did opt for Bunu, I believe is how you say his name, of Sevilla, where the Moroccan most recently starred in a close and a very tight 1-0 victory over Valencia, who are a pretty good side, I have to say, making for Sevilla's 3rd consecutive clean sheet. Obviously not all wins, one of them been a 0-0 draw. It's not been very exciting. I can imagine that Sevilla fans maybe aren't the happiest with their team's performances, but the fact that they're getting results, whether it's grinding it out or not, as long as they're not conceding, shows that the goalkeeper and defence are doing their job pretty nicely, and therefore I had to put Bunu in this team. But Sevilla fans won't really be complaining, as it did round off the season for them, for the Spanish side, where they're sitting neatly in 4th, neck to neck with Atletico Madrid for 3rd place, but obviously them scoring a few more goals overall in the season means they're just above in goal difference. Moving on to the defensive line just ahead, I did opt for Koke of Levante, Reguilon also of Sevilla, making it a potential double up in this team with 2 Sevilla players, but very unlikely. We'll probably see at the very least a featuring of at least one of either. And yet again another Uruguayan player in this squad, in Sarachi in the Turkish league for Galatasaray. Now all 3 players pretty low rated. Reguilon himself been the most usable one out of the 3. Does already have a considerably better alternative in his pre-existing TOTS card from objectives, but we'll cover him and we'll cover his performance most recently for Sevilla, as he was the goal scorer in said Valencia game, having scored the winner very, very early into the second half. Similarly to Koke having scored the winner himself for his side also. However, the time was a bit different, you know, from 50th minute to technically the 100th minute, with plus 10 minutes of added time. Levante actually got the winner, so good news for them. Pretty lucky, I'd say, but I actually haven't seen the goals. It might have been a wonder goal for all I know. Moving on to the midfield now, consisting of a set-piece master in Calhanoglu, or Calhanoglu, of AC Milan. A player people are very fond of, just because of, you know, he's quite skillful. But in FIFA, he's never really been that usable. I believe he got a Scream card, which was decent for the time being. I don't know if that was this year or last, but that's probably the best card he's ever had. And a recent permanent signing for Atalanta in Pasalic, as explained in my Transfer Talks videos, which if you haven't watched any of them videos, feel free to go check them out, as they're, you know, pretty fun videos, consisting of me just discussing transfer rumours and confirmed signings, and reflecting on FIFA 21 and the possible ones to watch cards for next year. And lastly, for the screen, in Declan Rice as an England international, who formerly was a Ireland international, saying a lot of pretty crude things against England, but I suppose it doesn't really matter what they say in the past as long as they're playing well. And recently, which if you haven't seen his wonder strike from the other day, you really are missing out. Edge of the box, across goal, into the top right with his right peg, one touch and shoot, showing why West Ham value him so highly, with him being key in what's been a pretty insane restart in the Prem for the West Ham team, firing in on all cylinders, I have to say. Finally, for the attack, as I've obviously done the bench, goalkeeper, defence and midfield now, with the attack consisting of the likes of Insame for his third special card of the year, I believe, which is always nice for him, as well as Lacazette, who's finally found a little bit of form, at least, a purple patch, if you will, having scored numerous times in the last 3 or 4 games for Arsenal. Harry Kane as Spurs talisman, having also found the net plentifully in the recent games, and Gerard Moreno of Villarreal, just to kind of round off the front 4 as you have on screen, as a nice little upgrade on his headliner card. Redundant, granted, that he has his team of the season card, which is just much better than his headliner and any of his informs ever will be. Now I'll actually talk about Insame, as he netted a glorious hat-trick for young boys in the South African League, I believe. I'm not too sure. To add to his tally of 30 plus goals alone, and that's not considering the assists around in all competitions this season, which is just lovely for the striker. And then Lacazette, who aided in Arsenal's most recent upset against Liverpool, and also played pretty decent in the game against City in the FA Cup semi-final, where of course they actually ended up winning 2-0, I believe. And quite interestingly, it is often referred to as their cup, with it being Emirates, and they're in the final again. Good on them. And they'll be playing Chelsea, as Chelsea beat United, and it should be a pretty interesting final. And then Harry Kane, who thankfully demolished Leicester City, his former club of course, in a 3-0 win for Tottenham, throwing a spanner in the works for top 4 race, with me being a Chelsea fan, as I seem to somehow slip that in every video in the last week or so. So if you didn't know already, I'm a Chelsea fan. But top 4 race is very close now. Let's say Leicester lose their game, but they beat Man United, and Man United win their game against West Ham. Then I believe Chelsea drop out of top 4, which is a bit rough. And it's, you know, rumoured that they need Champions League football to actually get Havertz, which is, it would be a shame if they dropped out. But that's not to take anything away from Leicester and Man United, who, especially since the restart, have looked pretty convincing. Less so with Leicester City, as they had a 10-point gap on both teams, Christmas time or something. But anyways, that does pretty much sum up my predictions for this week's team. If you have any players to suggest, please do so in the comments section down below. And stick around to the channel for more content like this, as I said. And yeah, I guess I'll see you in my next video. Peace.